Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sharon Noble, Director of the Coalition to Stop Smart Meters in BC. Welcome to the show, Sharon.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Sharon, you're very concerned about electronic warfare games being played by the U.S. Navy, where people in southern Vancouver Island will be irradiated with how much radiation from giant generators mounted on airplanes. You're very concerned about it because the public knows very little about this, and this is an activity they plan to run year-round until who knows when.
Exactly. Yes, I am very concerned about this, and I think it's something we should be asking the candidates who want to represent us in Ottawa. There's not been an article in any of the newspapers, nothing on television, not only in British Columbia, but also in Washington State. The people in Washington State are just as concerned as we are, and rightly so. The U.S. Navy is planning war games that were supposed to begin this month, but thanks to the public outrage, nothing has been settled. They are still negotiating with the government, and issues are being raised. The plans are that the U.S. Navy will be filing many growlers, as they're called, and I know that you're familiar with that type of plane, Jim. Growlers that are going to be taking off from Whidbey Island and will be flying over, by necessity, the southern Gulf Islands as well as Vancouver Island and probably even the southern area of British Columbia, on their way to the Olympic Peninsula. And they will be flying at very low levels, shooting radiation equipment and EMR emissions to and from planes. I don't know the exact purpose. I know that you said that there's been carrying out war games like this since the 1980s, saying if they could jam planes' radar equipment.
Well, since the Vietnam War, they would mount pods that contained electronic equipment that were designed to jam enemy radar, find out where enemy radar is, so they could target missiles on them. So this is just a continuation of technology that started back in the 60s.
And why do they need to do it for 260 days a year? Who knows how many hundred of flights each day? In addition to that, it's going to go on endlessly. We have no end date for it. This is going to be increasing the level of electromagnetic radiation in our environment dramatically. And it's going to be putting not only the animals in that pristine area of Olympic Peninsula, which is a heritage site, by the way, it's going to also be endangering the animals that are in the straits, the whales, the dolphins, and the people who live around here. All of us are going to be put at risk by this without our permission and even without our knowledge if we hadn't picked up on it accidentally. They never told anyone. The people in charge of the federal area, the federal park over there, signed the agreement without anyone else knowing about it. So I'm encouraging people. I hope that they go onto our site where they can get information about this. There is a current petition going out, and it has over 125,000 signatures on it. And I hope that they will sign, and also I hope that they will take the time at meetings that they are going to be having with their candidates for the election next month, ask them about it. Why haven't we heard anything from the federal government, from the provincial government, or even local government about this? We have a right to know about this.
Basically, they're flying microwave ovens with the doors wide open, and you get to enjoy being sprayed with this high-energy electromagnetic radiation.
Exactly. And they're going, not only will the radiation be terrible, the noise is going to be outrageously loud. They're going to be flying at very low levels, and as you know, the growlers are very, very loud planes. They're going to be disrupting our entire lives.
Yes, well, passenger airliners now are what they call fan jets, where they put an envelope of air around the jet exhaust to help reduce the noise. But military jets don't care about noise. Their idea is to get as much power out of an engine as possible. So yes, military aircraft of any kind do not use noise abatement procedures.
Yep. It's going to be terrible. The people over in Whidbey Island are complaining mightily about it, because they already have a lot of jets. The military has a base over there, and they already have a lot of planes to take off. And I believe that we can, on occasion, hear the rumbling from those planes, even here in Victoria.
Moving on to smart meters, Ontario's Auditor General has conducted a study on smart meters in Ontario. They've spent $2.2 billion on them in Ontario over the last 9 years. What have you heard about the study's conclusion?
The Ontario Auditor General concluded that after 9 years and $2.2 billion, there have been no benefits from the smart meter program. There's been no reduction in energy use, and in fact, it's time to start replacing some of them. The lifespan is extremely short, and the Auditor General is basically saying it was a waste of money, and it was a very bad political decision. We should have, in British Columbia, been taking our lead from Ontario and from California, where they've had this program in place for a number of years. We could have benefited from the fact that they knew that there were going to be no benefits, and the fact that they were the smart meters are fire hazards. California had already raised that issue, and so had the Ontario Fire Marshal. But BC Hydro and the BC government, in its eagerness to get these things in our home, completely disregarded due diligence.
What has the BC Auditor General done about the issue of smart meters?
Nothing. And as we all know, the BC Auditor General is having major problems because there are so many problems with this government. I've written, and I've asked many members of the coalition to write, asking the Auditor General to take a view of this. We do not even have a financial report. The last business case issue that I saw was in 2010. I've seen nothing else since then, even though I've asked. There should be an annual report provided by BC Hydro outlining the costs and the status of the program, and I believe we have a right to this. I also believe that we have a right to a projection of future costs, because the life expectancy is short. These things constantly have to be upgraded, and as we know, there have been many, many mechanical problems where these have had to be replaced. Now, even though they're under warranty for 5 years, what about the cost for replacing them? The people, the manpower, the time, the travel? We need to have an accounting of this. Also, we should be demanding accounting of the legacy fees that are being paid. For every 10,000 people who are paying the $30 to $40 a month, that's a $4 million landfall. That's money into Hydro's pocket that's unearned and unwarranted and unjustified. We deserve to know how much has been gathered and how it's being spent. What are those extra costs that they're incurring? It's time we had an accounting, Jim, and I hope that everyone will write to BC Hydro and to the BC Utilities Commission. They can do it as writing commission.secretary@bcuc.com and ask for an accounting.
Taking a look at some other jurisdictions, a judge has ruled that the city of Berkeley in California has the right to know how much radiation is coming off of cell phones.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It was tried in Maine and failed. It was tried in San Francisco last year and failed. All the cities have been asking for is for a label to be put on cell phones or on cell phone boxes so that when people buy their cell phones, they can see the warning that is included in every manual. If anyone who has an iPad or a cell phone looks inside their manual, it will be toward the back in very tiny print. It will say, keep these things close to an inch from every part of your body. And some of the manuals even say, if people do not do this, the warranty is void. Berkeley went ahead and pursued it and is being represented by a pro bono by a professor of law from Harvard. And the council voted unanimously for this a few months ago to have this label included and displayed clearly. And the telecommunications industry sued the city of Berkeley, and the initial response from the judge that we received this week was it is legal and they are allowing it. Now, of course, this is not a done deal yet because they will continue going up to the higher courts. But what is so terrifying, what is so threatening to the cell phone companies if people know what is in the manual? All they want to include is the very same wording that's in the manual itself. And it's so far back in the manual, people don't read it.
Michigan, Itron smart meters are failing due to overvoltage, with the covers being blown off and fires being caused. Any follow-up on that?
Yes, there have been some fires caused in Michigan, and Michigan has the Itron open-way meter, the same that we do. And I received and I circulated in my newsletter this week a letter or notice, a report from an engineer at DTS Energy in Detroit, saying that there had been meters with damages where the faces in the meter itself blows off when there is an overvoltage. Yes, there have been fires in Detroit and in Michigan. I am trying to get some specific information. I have newspaper reports only on about 3. And I don't know the status of that, whether there's been any legal action. As far as I know, there's no one in Michigan who is doing what I'm trying to do here in British Columbia, and that is to get the fire reports. It's a time-consuming and arduous task, and people need to get the details. They need to get behind the reports that are in the newspapers. But there have been at least 3 fires that I know of that have been reported in newspapers. As you know as well, I believe it was in Pennsylvania, where there are meters that were being installed about 7 years ago, between 7 and 10 years ago. And the utility is now replacing them because they see that their lifespan has been reached. This is going to happen here, too. We're going to be facing not only the cost for fires and lawsuits, we're going to be replacing those smart meters constantly.
We'll have more with Sharon Noble right after the break.
Unbelievable harmonies, spectacular performance. Bird Dog and the Vintage Electric Band, the ultimate tribute to the Everly Brothers and Simon and Garfunkel. In Oliver, October 2nd. In Kelowna, October 3rd. Buy online and save at ontourtickets.com. More and more people are looking to the internet for intelligent, riveting, and thought-provoking interviews. To advertise on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com, call 604-699-8600, 604-699-8600.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Sharon Noble, Director of the Coalition to Stop Smart Meters in BC. Sharon, you were explaining to me during the break that there's been an interesting case where a family's baby monitor was being interfered with by the smart meter.
Yes, there was some very good YouTubes that some father posted. He was in Michigan, and he had a baby, and he was passing by the room at 1:30 in the morning, and noticed that the baby monitor lights were flashing and going off like crazy. And I'm assuming that perhaps though he had a wireless baby monitor, which is not good. It emits radiation on its own, but that's another matter. I'm assuming that the receiver that was in the bedroom was probably making some noise, and that's what got him up. But he showed the lights were flashing like crazy right near the baby's crib, which was on the wall where the smart meter was on the outside. And the lights were just flashing like crazy. And as he got outside the baby's room, in the hall, the lights reduced in their flickering, and eventually when he walked into his bedroom, it stopped altogether. He did this 2 nights or 3 nights in a row, trying to figure out what was going on. He finally, in the last YouTube, is standing outside next to the smart meter, which is backing onto his baby's room, and the baby monitor is just going crazy. This shows that the strength of the emissions in the room adjacent to the smart meter are very, very high, despite what despite what Fortis is saying. It's not true. If it's strong enough to be showing up on a baby monitor, it's strong enough to be affecting that baby that's lying in the crib next to that wall.
Reminds me of the scene from Close Encounters of the Third Kind where the railway crossing lights were going nuts.
Absolutely. It's very similar to that, Jim. Very similar.
So, of course, if your baby was in trouble, if the thing's being interfered with, you wouldn't know it.
Probably. I don't know what kind of noise. I don't know whether it was overwhelming, any noise that the baby might make. But my concern is that baby monitor was registering the signals from the smart meter. And if that baby monitor is able to capture them and show them, you know that little baby is feeling them. You should get children into another room. If your smart meter is on the wall of a bedroom, nobody should be sleeping in that room. They should be moving out and getting as far away as they possibly can. They should also consider getting some shielding on that wall. There are several types of shielding that can be had, and it's really worth investigating if you have to use that room for sleeping.
The federal election candidates, should they be involved in the dispute about smart meters?
not only about smart meters, they should be involved with regard to the electromagnetic radiation that's being emitted by the smart meters. We should be asking our candidates for a federal office what their stance is with regard to the HESA committee, the subcommittee from Parliament that overlooks Safety Code 6 and provided recommendations saying that Safety Code 6 needs to be revised, that our standards are unsafe and inadequate. We need to ask them what they plan on doing, because so far, except for a very, very few number of MPs who read those recommendations, we haven't heard from very many of them. And once, just like in 2010, when I was working on that HESA committee meeting, that it was a year of the election, and as soon as everyone, the election came up, the recommendations were forgotten. We have to make sure that these recommendations are not forgotten this time when new MPs are elected. They need to be pursued. This is too important.
Sharon, I understand, too, that for people who are not big fans of hydro, the cost of going off the grid is getting cheaper every day.
Oh, yeah. Not only is the price of going off the grid getting cheaper, in some places in California, for example, there are cities where they're saying that it would be cheaper by far to go off the grid entirely. This is something, remember the report I sent off by Timothy Schleckel? He was a person who has been studying local grids, and he is recommending that communities, neighborhoods, create their own grid. First of all, it's cheaper, and especially if we get some of these new wind trees that are being tested in France, it would be very much cheaper, along with solar panels. It would also be much safer from a cybersecurity point of view. And the panels are becoming cheaper, the batteries are becoming more efficient, and there's much more selection. I think that small communities, towns, should be looking at going on their own. Why should we be under the thumb of hydro when there's something that's more efficient and really safer in many regards?
Sharon, thanks a lot for chatting with us.
My pleasure, Jim. I really appreciate the opportunity.
My guest has been Sharon Noble, Director of the Coalition to Stop Smart Meters in BC. And Sharon, before we go, what website should people be checking out about this?
We have two websites, Jim. The first one is www.citizensforsafetechnology.org. This has information about the health effects and about our class action lawsuit. And the other one is www.stopsmartmetersbc.com. And this has information about fires and other issues that we're involved with.
Thanks again for chatting with us.
My pleasure.
You're listening to The Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Check out our popular YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Comments about the show can be emailed to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on The Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.